welcome to this, which I believe is going to be one of the more important webinars of the season, the impact of AI on jobs in South Africa. And I'll just go around the room very quickly. Top left, Jarrod, all the way from Afrishore. If you just give your brief introduction, Jarrod, if you wouldn't mind.
Thanks, Rod, and welcome everyone. It's Jarrod Daniel. I'm the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Afrishore. We're based out in Johannesburg, Bryanston. I lead the ITO division within Afrishore, which is our IT outsource division. And really, it's the AfriCX platform that we deliver that brings our people and our technology aspects together, really driven around human-led and tech-enabled services. I think at pivotal to this is, I sit at the juncture of technology decisions, what operations needs, and the consequences of people. Today, I joined this webinar as a panelist, really as a practitioner, not much of a theorist. So expect some honest takes. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Good to hear that. Thank you, Jarrod. And next in line, Iemraan Kara.
Hello, everybody. My name is Iemraan Kara. I'm the founder and CEO of the Strategic Thinking Partner. And my perspective comes from nearly 3 decades of working across financial services, customer operations, leadership, transformation. And together with my new doctoral research that I'm doing into AI-shaped leadership in practice, I'm actually less interested in the abstract question, will AI take our jobs, right? I'm more interested on what happens on Monday or tomorrow morning when an agent, when a supervisor, or when a bot must serve our clients or our customers at the same time. Who makes that decision and whose judgment counts, right? So my perspective, my position today is that, there's stuff that needs to happen, and we'll unpack. So thank you, Rod.
Great, Iemraan, thanks for that. Hans, you and I had this discussion, if I recall, about this time last year down in Durban when we were at your opening of your AI Innovation Hub. We had that debate back then, and we've met several times since then. So your perspectives and your bit of background too.
Sure. For those who don't know Nutun, we're largely in the debt collection space. So we're in the South African collection space, almost exclusively doing collections, and then internationally into customer service and collections. So I guess for us, it's perhaps a slightly different lens to sort of more generic BPO. And we sort of focusing on automation AI in collections. So, for us, we've kind of made the decision that we've got 3 divisions: South Africa, International, and Zoe AI. So we've kind of gone as far as spinning out a separate division and an entity that says, we are going to focus on this as an offering and into a hybrid human AI agent. So I think, Rod, simply put, we think AI is going to change our industry in collections quite significantly. Generic customer service is harder, is more difficult. We've tried, we weren't super successful, but in the narrow use case of collections, we see a massive opportunity to leverage collections to be the best in the world, and through that bring jobs onshore. I think there's lots of jobs out there, but at the end of the day, for us to attract it to our shores and our capability, we need to be the best at what we do, which means that we need to be the best at AI, as well as everything else around collections.
Excellent, thanks on that. And first off, congratulations on your new title and role. Saw that on your LinkedIn post. Werner, we didn't leave you to last for nothing, but you and I go back, how many years? 10, 15 years, if not more.
15 years, yeah, sure.
It'll date us. So your show.
No, thanks. No, thanks, Rod. So I'm Werner Tenten. I'm founder of Get AI, and we're building the independent research-led home of human-centered AI for CX contact centers, BPOs, GBS. I'm also the creator of the human-centered AI operating system. I can talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, and the preferred training partner for the SA AI Association. So I've spent the last 25 years applying technology in business, the last 12 in AI, co-founded an analytics company, which became an AI company, which became an analytics company, become another AI company again. So designing and commercializing predictive models. In my previous life as a engineering manager, I bought millions of dollars of tools nobody used, and I led digital transformation programs that never saw the light of day. And those failures left so many clues, and those clues shaped everything I now teach and advise on. I currently run various AI strategy programs for companies, and one in particular recently launched a woman leading AI CX program that just completed its first cohort. Yeah, I had a phenomenal 9 out of 10 rating. Yeah, so that's me. Thanks, Rod, for having me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. So I know I'm going to be criticized. We got no woman on the team today, not for the want of trying, but there's always the next webinar, but we'll pick up on that. Hans, I'm going to throw the ball straight at you because I think the discussion you and I had at the launch of your Zoe AI collections engine, we had this discussion, and I seem to recall you saying that despite the use of AI and highly effective on the collection space, you weren't seeing job losses as a consequence, and I found that fascinating. I wonder if you unpack that, and by all means, let's talk about the solution that you deployed, because I think it's a pioneer solution, and it's certainly going to demonstrate whether or not we have this job losses in the wake of AI deployments. Back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just a bit of context of the Zoe solutions. And as I said, it's a collection-based solution. So I think the first thing to look at AI is a tool like anything else. I think, Werner, you would probably say so in your sort of education efforts. But ultimately, it's about solving the business problem. So if you think about credit in South Africa, credit over the world, whichever market you go to, consumers are quite stretched. Inflation is high. There's a lot of financial hardship out there in South Africa, US, UK, whichever market that we operate in. So largely, the way we kind of think about it is, our clients have credit loss ratios that they need to fix. And if you look at, the South African stats are actually super interesting in that once an account, somebody stops paying their account and it goes into delinquent, it's a roughly 50-50 chance that debt goes into a debt purchase write-off scenario. So all accounts that go delinquent, half of the time, you never get that money back. And that is the business problem that we're looking to solve. So the complication with that is that none of the lenders or the DCAs or anyone in that ecosystem has the capacity to truly interrupt that flow of value down the cycle. And the older that debt gets, the value is continually destroyed in that glide path. So how do we provide AI capacity to be able to engage consumers and really sort of help them meet their financial obligations, get back onto the path of wellness, outside of a contact center construct, which is limited by the human capacity? You can't flex human capacity that easily in real time. So we went off right in the early days of AI. So roughly 6 months after ChatGPT launched, that's when we started developing. So we're 3 years into the journey. It's taken us 3 years to get this far. But we've deployed Zoe as a full voice AI agent, autonomous agentic agent. So what Zoe does is she calls, she engages, she negotiates, she secures a payment, and she does this completely autonomously. 80% of the time. And the remaining 20% is she fails over to a human agent. So what that does is, we've always spoken about digital and other things, other technologies taking workload away from the contact center. We're now talking about digitization in the contact center to automate as much as 80% of the processes. But in a world of volumes, where those volumes would be underserved by the client anyway, right? They just didn't have the capacity to economically kind of go after that discussion. So to be honest, we weren't sure if it was going to work. We weren't sure how consumers would engage AI. No use cases. There were no case studies. There were no nothing. But we kind of took the hardest task that we thought we could get, which was simulating a human conversation in collections. And it's worked out okay for us. It's worked out well for us. So I think, in the world of job losses, the net effect, I mean, we have had some lower level staff, which we've managed to direct into our international business. But the real effect has been, our narrative to our human agents was be better than the bot. So no matter what the bot does, just be better. And we've had this situation where, the bot is getting better, but the human's getting better in successive developments. So actually, what we've seen, Rod, is that, the top accounts, the third most valuable accounts, are handled by humans in a more complex, more difficult scenario. The middle third is handled by Zoe, and the bottom third is still uneconomical because tokens still cost a lot of money. But what it's had the effect of is raising the overall capability. I think, Rod, when we last spoke, we said, well, when you take the bot and the human, they compare about equally. When you combine them, you get 20% better. With blending, we now actually think that number is closer to 50% better. So the combination of AI and bot is now getting 50% better results than each one individually. So this harmony of human and AI is kind of where we see it evolving, because our agents will get better. It will make us more competitive to other perhaps low-cost geographies or other locations across the world. And within our narrow use case of collections, we think that that's going to give us huge differentiating advantage and overall job growth, not loss.
That's interesting, and I'm delighted to hear that the human in the loop component of this. And I'm going to ask Jarrod Daniel, your organization as well. You've also been an early mover in the world of deploying AI in parallel with the live agent. What is your take on that? And let's compare those two scenarios.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. And that's quite interesting insight from Hans, because I think a good starting point is a good stat that grabs my attention is the World Economic Forum is forecasting that about 170 million jobs will be created by 2030. And you can get fairly excited around that, although the reality of that number, when you start slicing it up, is that 92 million of those roles are going to be displaced. And you need to start getting real around, within the BPO space. The fact of the matter is that the core workforce is focused on, clerical, admin, data entry, basic back office functions. So the reality is that we are on the, side of the ledger where jobs are going to get displaced, and there is going to be some significant loss. Although I think the real question is around, how is that loss actually distributed, and where is the gain? And the focus that we've put on at Afrishore is really, if you look at our leading statement, it's all about human-led, tech-enabled. So we've put the agent at the center of every conversation. And that retains, some of the benefits of outsourcing specifically to the South African, BPO sector. One of the fundamental elements that we are finding in terms of retention and is not really jobs being eliminated, but jobs being redefined. And I think that's the perspective that that's a reality for us. And it's really about when we look at our frontline, basic or admin filled back office tasks, it's how do we elevate those roles? Because the fundamental shift is with AI, there's a supervisor function. It's about, it all started off with how do I inspect and verify what AI is doing? And the shift is really to more of a design and a systems-based approach. And how do we get these skill sets to start thinking on a wider level? AI is going to do its job. It is going to automate the routine tasks. It's really about elevating our current roles and reskilling the workforce so we can have a more larger, a holistic approach to design and systems, and not trying to do what the AI does. Ultimately, those functions, the transactional layer is going to be completely automated. I think just to extend on that further, I think we mustn't forget the number one reason, companies outsource to South Africa. If we just look at our client base across the US and the UK, if you just zoning in on SA talent, there's really is that cultural affinity, the fluency in English. I mean, those are the elements that become strong differentiator for agents. Now with AI automating the transaction layer, it really creates the opportunity for our agents to start focusing on our strengths. And therein it lies the actual opportunity in itself. So when you look at redefining the role, where's the focus, playing to our strengths, putting our agents at the center, we firmly believe that as an organization, if we adapt by reskilling internally, being creative, and there's a large amount of an entrepreneurial flair that is now coming through, has to focus in on the opportunity and the value that's coming from the client.
Okay,
So we
well
very
said.
much see the role, that's how we look at minimizing what is the hype around the displacement within the BPO sector.
Displacement. Yeah. Excellent. Iemraan, I'm going to come back to you shortly because I'd really like your view, particularly from the academic side that you're studying at the moment. Werner, your advisor, consultant hat, if you take those two perspectives, one from Jarrod and one from Hans, what are you seeing as the middle ground on that?
Yeah, so it's exactly that. So we're seeing the headlines, and it is vacillating. It is AI is going to take your job. So yeah, that's bad. But it's not. And then we get middle ground headlines saying, oh, it's bad, but it's not so bad. And then we get the opportunistic and the hype type view. You just grab this opportunity. It's a great opportunity for us all. So which is it? And yes, what I find after 12 years working in AI industry is that AI is not taking CX and BPO jobs. Bad AI strategy is. So and the data and the research backs it up. So and I always I lent this term from someone I know, totally outside of the industry, Dr. Hannes Dreyer. He talks about confoculation, and he said
Oh,
it's
I
the
like
state of not knowing what you should be knowing. And it's because of this headlines that's been hitting us that rarely we go into the data and ask us, what is the data telling us? So, and the headlines, the research is unambiguous. 95% of AI projects fail, and the primary barriers are not technical. So, although I agree, Hans, it's a technology project, the primary barriers of failure is organizational. Organizational. If you look at the research, no clear metrics, AI is treated as an IT project instead of a business transformation. You get sponsorship decay, poor data quality, but here's the one that matters most for the conversation on jobs. There's a wrong effort split in implementation. So Boston Consulting Group calls it the 10-20-70 rule. Only 10% of AI value comes from the algorithm. 20% of AI value comes from technology, and 70% comes from people and process. So that means the conversation about jobs should not start with, well, which roles should AI replace? You start with how ready is our organization to use AI in a way that actually works, that creates clear role pathways, etc., etc. So I mean, I've seen this over the last 25 years, not just in AI, but in technology overall. And it's where we see that it's not because AI didn't work or technology didn't work. It worked. It was the organizations around it that weren't ready. The skills weren't ready. So the change management wasn't there. The trust wasn't there. A big one for AI. So the skeletons of those failures leaves a lot of clues. And it was never the technology. It's the strategy, change management, to trust. So in Africa, we have a language for that. It's called Ubuntu, and a person is a person through other people. So real intelligence, real wisdom is relational. It sits in pockets, in heads of people. So how do we create that collective coherence, like Hans was saying, like how do we bring those systems together, AI, and we start asking different questions. How does the system strengthen our ability to flourish together and to create to differentiate ourselves. So yes, what I say, I mean, to every CX and BPO leader in South Africa, the threat to jobs is not AI itself. It's deploying AI without fixing our skills, journeys, incentives, and building the right trust infrastructure around it. And that's where the organization will thrive, where they evolve their people, and the ones who treat AI adoption as a human-centered discipline, not a technology project. That's really the ones that win. And to that, there's two elements of it to close off. Two elements. The one element, human-centered, means we are prioritizing our people above technology. But it also means we are treating this new technology not as a technology deployment. In the past, technology deployments is deterministic. We're trying to fix this process with a input versus an output. AI is probabilistic, so it's more like it's saying it's artificial, it's intelligence. So we should treat it more like recruitment, people into our business. And if we treat it more like that, that's where we see the data telling us a lot of successes is created in the market.
Okay,
So, yeah.
interesting perspectives, right? Iemraan, I'm sure you're ruining a day that you left the infrastructure of a major corporate banking environment, because and I think the discussions you and I've been having over the past few weeks is your view, because you're seeing the inside of the boardroom, you're seeing what's happening, you're hearing what's happening on the inside of many corporate boardrooms. So, what's your take on the challenges that we faced with? First off, I'm delighted to hear Jarrod, Werner, and Hans saying jobs to some extent, but we'll elevate them to another level. Iemraan, what's the boardroom saying?
Yeah, thanks, Rod. I think, I mean, my perspective comes in that, I mean, just one of the comments from Werner, data, what does the data tell us? But I think we need to flip the script, right? And go, what does the data not tell us? And, and what the data doesn't tell us about capabilities and roles, within the South African space, for example. I would want to organize that maybe into human, technological, and orchestration capabilities, right? Where the human capabilities includes the complex problem solving. Do we have the empathy, the negotiation? Hans mentioned, they can negotiate. The emotional regulation, how do we deal with the customer at the end? Domain knowledge and regulator judgment, right? Whereas the technology capabilities, I would go, include the AI literacy, the knowledge, the conversation design. How do we put this all together? Output verification, right? How do we test bots? And the ability to recognize unreliable recommendations. What do we do with that information from that data perspective? And then to bring it together from an orchestration perspective is the ability to manage the end-to-end customer journey, right? Where it's also, best design, but also when it fails, right? Who owns that outcome, right? And then for me, the main thing is, again, AI works, right? But if we, as a customer, when the customer is at the end, they mustn't feel like they're speaking to a bot. I think that is what success looks like, right? It must be frictionless. Only then would we be in a space to be able to go, my bot performs like this, and my agent performs like this. But do we track how at the end, what do we do with our clients?
Okay. Iemraan, so can I jump in here? And I'm going to pass it back to Hans, because Hans, when I attended your launch a little while back, I mean, that was a bot speaking to a person. The person knew it was a bot. And yet statistically, your numbers are panning out that there's not all that much customer kickback, or not customers, what do you call them? Data.
Yeah, rejection, drop-off rates, those kind of things.
Yeah. We'll come back to you, Iemraan, from your view, but I'd really like to get Hans's view on that before we proceed. Go for it.
Yeah, probably what I'd say, Rod, is, we all kind of embark on these journeys and we try a few things out, and we go in with certain assumptions of what we think is going to be true, and where it's going to resonate and not. And, our experience is probably half the time we get it right. And half the time, it's actually a very surprising reaction from the humans on the other side, the customers on the other side. So I think the point you're alluding to is that in collections, which is an emotionally sensitive and vulnerable conversation, this isn't my package isn't delivered, or the branch manager spoke to me poorly. This is somebody in their time of need. We see an emotional response which is quite positive, and that people feel more comfortable to speak to the bot than the human.
That's interesting.
In terms of what they commit to the bot, they're more likely to follow through on those commitments talking to a machine than we see with our human agents. So the response is actually very interesting. And if you'd asked me 2 years ago, how I would have said probably no, people don't want to talk to a bot. They're going to put the phone down. They're going to reject this thing whole scale. But the reality can be quite different. Now, depending on the use case, in a lot of ways, I think one of the things that we need to start becoming is industrial psychologists and human behaviorists. So that as we start deploying use cases, you kind of need to take a bet and a punt of how people are actually going to react to the technology, and design our products and services in such a way that we get a positive outcome in terms of that customer interaction. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking jobs, but jobs are directly proportional to the service we can offer to our clients, and ultimately the engagement that we have with their customers. And when we start putting ourselves in that world, and we start saying, what if, and let's try this and let's try that, I don't think we're going to get any better in guessing, but I think we'll half be right. But that half is the differentiation that through testing you've got to lean into, in my perspective, and say, once we've got behavioral responses, let's lean into that and see if we can scale that as an industry.
Excellent. Great stuff. Iemraan, can you pick up where we left off on that? Because I think that was a very interesting differentiated view of the same challenges. So if you pick up on that, then Jarrod, I'm going to ask you your experience in terms of customer acceptance of bots. And then one of the other things to put in the back of your minds, I really would like us to look at the challenge of voice versus digital, and where's that going? And I've got some stats from the UK and the States, which I'll share in a few moments. But Iemraan, really, if you can pick up where we were there, and then over to you, Jarrod. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks. So again, I agree with Hans. That we need a behavioral response. We need a behavioral design in things. My background is, I come from a social sciences background. So I quite like that. And the main thing is, again, if we look at what happens in a collection space and what's going to happen in banking or insurance, the way the bot is going to be designed and operate and speak is going to be vastly different, because the emotional responses will be different, right? And where, from a collections perspective, my take would be, they are, they in the predicament, they're embarrassed, so they're more likely to speak to somebody that they think don't know them and follow through. Whereas, on the flip, in health, in medical services, the responses will be slightly different. Hence my suitcase statement is, we need to design where we will know when AI doesn't work, or work when people don't know. I think that is where we need to get to. But also coming back to the job aspects, is in this design that we are doing, I haven't seen on bulk, at the wholesale level, where we're advertising cool roles, like a AI leader coach, or AI QA coach, or AI script writer. Or do you understand? So whether it's a bot or a human, I think it doesn't matter, because at the moment today we have X amount of jobs, and we're looking to place 30,000 more jobs. But we still have our old KPIs. We still have our old jobs named call center agent. So I think we need to get with the times and create the meaningful work for that interaction between bots and humans. And then at that middle manager, team leader layer, we need to step it up. I think that is where the opportunity is from a South African perspective. Thanks, Rod.
Okay, thank you for that one. Jarrod, briefly, where are you seeing that emotional connection between machine, person, human, agent? It's an ecosystem, isn't it?
No, 100%.
How are you seeing it?
Yeah, so so within our group of companies, we have a collections business. And back to Hans' point, what I've picked up from a technology perspective is the way that we introduce these technologies within our collections business, or account receivables rather, and our BPO business. It all really comes down to the digital journey. So that's our starting point. So you can select voice, or you can do conversational AI at a messaging level. But if you zoom out, what does a digital journey look like? And the success of that will determine how the interaction of the payer or the client is going to move through that entire process. So what we've done is we've kind of taken an opt-in approach. Personally, just trying to get used to just speaking to a voice AI seemed a bit insensitive at first. But now the technology is fairly mature. And an opt-in approach would be more like a soft journey in the beginning. So we have, you got an SMS, you got your WhatsApp messaging, you got a video, you got a voice note that you can drop, you got self-service options that you can give your payers. But that's all front-loaded, and it funnels down then to here's a actual generative conversational bot that you can interact with and to complete your request. Obviously, that then evolves to an agentic autonomous approach to it. But the moral of the story is digital journeys. How do we soften the approach in the beginning and give client alternative options to just the human upfront? Let's offload our workforce to rather work on more complex, high-order thinking tasks to get more value out of the organization. And let's be real. Now I'm going to put my technology hat on. There's a cost to serve end to end in the digital journey. We would love to put 500 agents out there and make them coexist with the humans. That's going to fundamentally change the way we budget and the way we cost this out to our clients. So, having a more softer approach and a funneled approach to the journey allows us to, segment quite smartly as to which payers, be it the younger generation, there's going to be a better uptake in terms of that. How do we target specific client bases to yield better results? Because there's another side of this conversation. We only touching on the front end, which we all refer to as multi and omni-channel. There's a data component. In these businesses is, how are we using AI to segment and utilize the data and then load that into our conversational pieces to yield the best results. So it's an end-to-end strategy. So the digital journey is key to success. I think just trying to force feed a new technology down the consumer's phone is not going to be the best approach. There is a learning curve for everyone. It is maturing. I think those are multiple factors that we need to take into the success. And that's what we've adopted to ensure that we get the best results.
Excellent. You put out a trigger word there, and I'm going to bounce that back to Werner. Strategic. In your wearing your strategic advisor hat and as an educator as well, what is the state of strategic thinking across the contact center industry, BPOs and captives as well? What are you sensing and seeing out there? And what can we as an industry, both from the technology provider point of view and as operators, what should we be doing to stimulate a more mature thinking at board level, strategic level?
Sure, thanks, Rod. Yeah, I think Iemraan also alluded to that. Why we're not seeing roles like knowledge analyst or knowledge manager, because a lot of it is going to move into that space where people are going to the role splits, and some of it moves upwards into different functions. So, and I think if we look at Maslow's theory of needs, when AI enters the workplace, it doesn't just affect those tasks, it affects the entire hierarchy. So we look at job security, and that's safety. We look at team identity, and that's a sense of belonging. Where do I now belong with AI? We're looking at professional expertise and esteem. When I get up in the morning, am I motivated to go do what I need to do? People aren't resisting AI because they're backward or they're trying to be difficult. They're protecting fundamental human needs. So in that case, the trust we develop now as a foundation layer in our organizations becomes key. The reason why I think we're not seeing those roles yet is because the frontier models isn't as mature. You get these slivers of frontier models that's maturing a lot faster. Like Hans was saying, I also see it in collection space. It is maturing a lot faster in that space. But also Microsoft said 6 months ago, it will only be 2 years until highly capable frontier models gets released. It is going to be faster and slower, and depending on the uptake here in South Africa as well. But I think the key thing as leaders, it's looking at AI right now, it's looking through binoculars the wrong way. Everything seems distant, complex, and unreachable. But if you flip the binoculars around again, and suddenly what seemed far away is right in front of you, in focus. So our jobs as leaders is to fix the optics for our people and to help them to understand that there's a critical distinction between the roles that's exposed versus eliminated. So the most what we're seeing in customer service today, as happening today, is there's AI exposure, which is impacting certain tasks within a role. But that exposure doesn't mean that exposure with certain tasks being automated, taken over by AI, means the role changes and it doesn't vanish. So the question is whether we lead that change or we let it happen to people. People are reading billboards. All our people are reading the billboards. AI coming for your job. So how do we help change that optics internally for our organization? And I think that's a key thing for us to make sure we have a solid foundation for when those frontier models hit. And we've got a bit of a time frame. To the extent it's going to hit South Africa. And Africa, It's not yet clear, but we do have time to prepare for that.
Okay.
Rod, sorry,
yeah.
man. I just want to add, if it's okay, and I think
No,
what
please.
Werner is saying is a containment rate is not a customer outcome. I think that's the essence, right? And the AI's real value is where the improvement can be tracked downstream from an accounting perspective, from a finance perspective, right? Because again, if we track a cost reduction in one queue or one campaign, that creates the remediation, creates attrition, creates customer harm or whatever elsewhere, is not a productivity game, right? It's just transfer cost and risk. And what we're doing today is, for the board, we put a slide together and we just track. We've implemented AI as a tool, and that's a standalone thing. We need to track this thing end to end and to be able to justify it, not just technology licenses or lower handling times. I think that this is a whole ecosystem, Rod, like you said earlier. Thanks.
Hans, back to you. I mean, you guys over the last couple of years have spent truckloads on developing your tools and your AI. So I'm sure there's a bunch of guys sitting in an office saying, show me the money, the ROI on it. And that balancing act between driving the AI through, reducing operational costs. Jarrod used the term cost to serve. I mean, we see the numbers, it's cents versus rands, how do you address that when you called into that boardroom to say, show me the money? What's your answer on that one?
You're probably triggering me because the CFO was not my friend in the beginning. In the initial stages, the AI for us was very loss making. And it took us a hell of a long time to get the business case right, where we could start seeing some daylight between the AI and the human agents. And to be clear, it's a little bit of daylight. It's not orders of magnitude cheaper to use the AI. And to Werner's point around the frontier models, it ain't going to get cheaper anytime soon. If you look at the recent results into the US, Google, in its first time in history, went to net cash flow. I mean, that is, and we're not talking small numbers here, we're talking massive numbers. So the hyperscalers and the AI companies are going to require a return on their investment. So I think we can't think that that's going to be our savior. And I don't know, I'm of the view that AI is, there's the general accepted theory that no, it's going to get cheaper over time, because the technology world has operated in a long time that said incremental volumes come at no incremental cost. But AI is very different. Incremental volumes directly come at incremental costs. So what it really means from a business case perspective is that you really need to know what you're targeting. And if you accept that the answer is not going to be just a call center reduction cost, and it's got to be a business outcome improvement, then I think you've got a better chance of success of driving an outcome. I think the one thing, Rod, though, is the BPO industry, I think, is starting to embrace that there's a better way of doing BPO. And how do we actually start disrupting our own organizations to do things better, cheaper, faster, and what Jarrod says, which is more sort of human-centric. And I mean, just the example that I give, if you ever do an analysis of how many people exist in your BPO organization to support the one agent, I think the ratio will scare you. And you think of the poor agent there who has 10, 15, 20 people who are telling them what to do in an average of averages. And I really feel for the agents. I mean, just the conflicting messages and the lack of personalization and all the rest of it. I mean, we put these people under huge, immense pressure to be better, to be faster, to be more efficient. But how are we looking at disrupting our own way of, let's challenge the way we've always done this thing and say, how do we truly enable the human? Just also probably the last point, I mean, we've had a success in collections, but I also want to be clear, customer service is a completely different ballgame. Very, very different business cases, very hard to kind of make that work, very hard from a cost perspective. And I don't think anyone's cracked that particular nut. But I would hope that as an entrepreneurial, innovative South African community of BPOs, we can put our heads together and say, well, how are we going to do this differently? And how are we going to be better for the agent, but be better for the customers as well?
Okay, I'm going to, as we say in Afrikaans, klip in die bors and address one of the elephants in the room, which is the battle between technology, bots, and voice. Okay, where's that going? I mean, a few years ago, dates me, when we saw IVR coming, that was the end of call center agents. IVR was going to do everything. Then we heard AI is coming down the track. AI is going to do everything. End of agents. Voice is dying. And yet the stats I'm starting to pick up from the UK, from the States, and even from fairly recent research here in South Africa, there's not a dramatic drop-off in voice. I mean, the UK stats where voice dropped slightly below 50% is now turning back up again, where the voice channel, and Contact Babel does some very interesting research on that. And they have a three-dimensional model that says when it's urgent, complex, or emotional, triggers a voice call. And that certain issues that even 2 or 3 years ago were not urgent, not emotional, that same issue today is, and is triggering voice again. So, my background of our erstwhile sponsors is the world of voice. I'm going to ask Jarrod, because you guys are doing a lot of both local and international. Are you seeing a deliberate turn in voice one way or the other? I'd be interested in your view. And then, Werner, also, as you're putting on your consultant's hat, what are you seeing in terms of voice versus tech? Jarrod first.
Yeah, so we don't see voice diminishing as a channel of communications, but there is a mix across our campaigns. We have some campaigns that prefer just messaging only, no voice, and they're quite large. And it's really on the application. If it's booking, online ordering, it's going to be more digital, less voice. But on the customer service front, and in general, voice is still primarily an adopted or widely used technology. I think the key thing for AI and the advancements in terms of voice would be, and I think we're all quite familiar with the conversation of, is voice dying? Where is the contact center going? There's two parts to this. I think for number one is AI is helping us to articulate better, because a voice call can go on and on around, where is this going? Are we resolving the right problems? But leveraging AI and pairing it up with the voice technology, am I retrieving the right knowledge? Do I understand enough about my client? Am I able to, position the right responses? Now we have the technology. That's what's empowering the contact center and the BPO. So it is taken voice and elevated it to the next level, which is a fantastic for CX in general. I think overall, voice services, I think the in terms of advancements, look at contact centers, and some of the leading providers out there. Your Five Nines and your Zoom platforms, they've evolved past just having a multi-channel conversation. We have AI embedded in all of these ecosystems, which has elevated the voice and the digital communications holistically. If they were cutting back on their R&D in terms of voice, I think that'll be a significant sign that this is going to go nowhere. But they're not. It's improving, and we need to sit back, be entrepreneurial about it, articulate well, how do we leverage these technologies and continue to give our clients great experience.
Excellent. We're starting to run a bit out of time, so if we could take it to you, Werner, your view on...
Quickly.
technology
sure.
versus voice or bot versus voice debate?
Sure. I think it's a fundamental need for humans to connect. And but also to have convenience. And the last keynote, I asked the audience, what would you say if you? I was sitting outside. I couldn't attend a lot of the conference that time around. So I said, well, imagine I had a robot sitting outside doing all my work for me, and I could have enjoyed this everything in here. And I asked the audience, if you could choose between a personal assistant that's a human versus a personal assistant that's a robot, which would you choose? And it was very interesting. People mostly wanted a robot personal assistant. Now, that tells us something about human nature. We want the convenience, but we still want the human connection. We want to be able to experience and be part of something, but we want to be able to handle that. So I think, just to close off with bots versus the personal touch. I think the organization won't only compete on those AI features alone. It will be the competing on experiences that only humans can design and deliver with AI as an enabler. So those winning brands won't be defined by their AI. They'll be defined by how they use AI to make the lives of the people better, the customers better. So we don't need to fear the technology. We need to fear the absence of the people strategy we build around it. I think that's the key thing.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, we're going for wrap now. So as we go around the room, I'm going to ask each of us to discuss. There's three words I used in a presentation I did the other day: hindsight, foresight, and insight, as three key drivers of strategy. Hans, what's the hindsight that you look at? What's your foresight, and what's the key insight that you can leave delegates with today or attendees today? Hindsight, foresight, insight.
Yeah, so hindsight, it is harder, more expensive, and takes longer than foresight. The way the stuff is developing, it's going to be quicker, cheaper, and more effective than you think. So, and insight, I would say, is in all of that, you've got to be in it. You've got to jump in the pool. You've got to try some stuff out. You've got to be innovative, because you can't predict the future. But if you're not playing, you're not going to win.
Nice one. Iemraan, same challenge. Very brief, if I can ask you.
Thanks. Hindsight, I think that the notion that AI bots can do everything, and the insight is that, as we are a young South African population, and we're targeting 90% increase in jobs, the younger generation, the Afrillennials, the Gen Zs, are more likely to adopt AI. So how do we redesign our customer journeys for that? And the foresight is that task susceptibility is not job loss, and it's not automation. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jarrod.
I think in hindsight, AI is real. It's not a hype. It's landed. It's been widely adopted across all demographics, all age groups, across business. Hindsight will be acceptance. It is here and here to stay and evolve. Foresight will be there is going to be transformation and redefinition of job roles and business models going forward. Jump on the bandwagon, understand it, lean into it. And I think lastly is the insight is, in one word, adaptability. Adapt your operating models, adapt your business models, adapt your thinking.
Fail fast.
That's it.
Werner, your take.
If we look at hindsight, we've been through so many industrial revolutions, and they all left a lot of clues again. This is really disruptive in that sense. It is it's one of the, I think, most disruptive industrial revolutions we've ever faced. But we've had we've had we had history to tell us a lot about what happened in there. So I think it's using a lot of that to create the foresight in terms of where we're heading. It's about role pathways, splitting and elevating. So it's exactly the same game that we have. So I think that's the insight. It's really, just to get into it. Don't stop learning. Don't stop staying ahead of what's happening, and really it's around the people, around our people, what we do with them, and how we help them through this phase. That's really, I think, the key things.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Just before we log off, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't give my sponsor a bit of a punt here. As you'll see from the logo, it has changed from Colby Speech Analytics Made Easy to Interaction Intelligence. And I'm going to ask my friend and colleague, Corey Springett, just to come in briefly and just give a bit of a preview. There's a major launch happening next week. And we're going to ask Corey just to give us a 60 seconds preview of it. It's very pertinent to our discussions here. Corey, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Rod?
I can hear you. Come on, camera in, please.
You need to activate camera for me. I don't see it.
Go for it anyway, while I'm fiddling.
So from my side, just to the panelists, what a fascinating discussion. I like the comment about this is going to be the biggest disruption. It is an industrial revolution like we've not seen. From a Colby perspective, our approach is cautious. So we're seeing it as adding efficiencies and enhancements to the agent rather than replacing it. So from our approach to AI is twofold. The first one is to take the existing Colby platform and enhance it with AI, bringing in automated insights, things like summaries, as well as the ability to create AI-based prompts, which have unique use cases over text-based prompts. But the other areas where we're experimenting is we've developed a RPC bot for one of our collection clients. Rod has heard it. We went the other way around. Our bot now sounds like an agent in a contact center with ringing phones and background noise because people are more susceptible to things that I feel familiar. If you have these bots and it's perfect English and it speaks in a quiet room and you're thinking, but that's not how contact centers sound. We're all learning as we go. But I share Hans's view. It's expensive, it's far more complex than you think. And there, AI in itself introduces incredible complexities with just query and non-determination of queries. So lots of lessons for everyone still to learn. We're in the early days.
Excellent. Thanks for that wrap then, Corey. So first and foremost, I think to our panelists today, Jarrod, Iemraan, Werner, and Hans, thank you, mate, so much for making time, giving us your experience, your insights, your foresights, and experience of hindsight. And thank you for sharing that. I think it's been a very valuable session. Yes, we're seeing lots of hearts coming up here. Our CEO measures that, but he counts the number of hearts we get at the end of these sessions. So, but thanks to Colby for sponsoring us and the Thought Leadership Foundation, which is you'll see a lot more of this going around, where we are looking for new ways of looking at the world that we operate in, the BPO CX world. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and our delegates or attendees, all 58, for sitting through, and hopefully you found value in this session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks. Bye-bye.